bonus video of Bloodborne. Yeah, so here's the thing. I finished the game, and I was talking to somebody in my life about this, and I was trying to explain what the game was about. And I found myself saying, it's very confusing. There's stuff going on. I don't know what this is. I didn't really know what that was. And I thought, man, I need to go watch a video that explains the lore of this game. And I really want to narrow it down and kind of connect some of those dots that were spread all over the place in my mind throughout the actual playthrough. So I'm going to watch the VaatiVidya 11-minute version of the Bloodborne lore explained. I think there's a 30-minute video. This video has 2.5 million views. The guy's got 2.5 million subscribers. I'll put the link to the video in the description. You can check it out directly to support him. I'm just going to do kind of a watch reaction for any of you that followed my play along. Just let me, watch this, make some comments, try to understand what's going on myself. So that's what we're doing today. Will be a much shorter video than my usual ones. Here we go.
Your character arrived in Yharnam from a faraway land, seeking a cure for some unnamed illness. You sign a contract, take blood, and become a hunter of the dream, tasked with ending the spreading scourge of beasts. Like many hunters before you, your consciousness is now bound to the hunter's dream, and you are able to project yourself into the waking world of Yharnam. At the end of the game, the nameless...
I actually never really thought about it like that. I kind of thought everything was a dream. And even though I was in the hunter's dream, I thought that Yharnam was a dream too, and that I was bouncing from dream to dream. I never actually thought at any moment that Yharnam was the waking world. That's interesting.
Moon presence descends. This is a great one, an elder being that beckoned the hunters.
There's another one. They talk about great ones in the game. There's little bits of items and little bits of just item descriptions that would mention great ones. I knew about it. I didn't really know what was what. I thought maybe Cause was one in the DLC. There were some when I slain a nightmare, I thought about that maybe that was one, but I don't really know what a great one is.
And conceived the hunter's dream.
I'm gonna rewind that.
Being that beckoned the hunters and conceived the hunter's dream. And you're here now asking, why? Well, let me tell you the story up until this point. It all began in the tombs below Yharnam. Once, what we now call Chalice Dungeons contained an entire civilization. It consisted of the Temerians and the Great Ones. The Temerians were a humanoid race, but the Great Ones were far from it. Each Great One is bizarre, unique, and trying to pin down their motivations as a species or individually is fairly futile. The only thing that's clear about them is this: the Great Ones, like any other race, want to reproduce, but for them, it's difficult. Each Great One appears to be truly unique, and since that makes mating impossible, they impregnate their subjects instead. The Ring of Betrothal states that in the age of the Great Ones, certain Temerians were permitted to bear a special child. This union was a blood contract.
Okay, two things. That is a ton of information that I clearly did not pick up out of the item descriptions. Two, I'm watching a fight that I've never fought. I didn't think the Chalice Dungeons were that important to the gameplay. And so as he immediately dives into talking about how I'm in it, how what is now called the Chalice Dungeons is this ancient civilization, how important it is to the lore of the game, I feel like maybe I missed out on that. The Chalice Dungeons felt very much like either a grind session, some multiplayer co-op type thing. I never really thought they were that important to the game. I didn't see them as the main game. So maybe that was a mistake.
Our first reference to the blood of the Great Ones. Most of these births failed, but some didn't. At some point, the Great Ones ascended. We know this because there are multiple references to some Great Ones being left behind. The Great Ones moved on to the Nightmare Realm, and the Temerians were left alone, destined to watch over the physical remains of the slumbering Great Ones. In time, the Tumerian civilization fell to the plague of beasts. Perhaps it was something in the blood. Eventually, a group of Bergenworth scholars stumbled upon this place, and the events of Bloodborne were set into motion. The scholars discovered the old blood of the Great Ones, a miraculous substance that made their dream of evolution a reality. The school of Bergenworth was headed by Master Willem. An ambitious, yet cautious man, Willem desired to ascend to a higher plane of existence, and believed that the knowledge of the Great Ones would lead him there.
So this I did, when I was trying to explain this to my friend, I did, I think, grasp this. What I was thinking in my mind was that much of the game is that there are, I called them aliens, the Great Ones, right? But they're very alien. So I was saying that, okay, there's like aliens and they showed up, and there's parasites, and, Kaz had parasites. And what I was expecting this was going to say was that the blood of Kaz had parasites, which then infected the blood of humans. And we knew that we could sort of do some science and make aliens, make beasts, and things like that. So I think we're kind of in line with my thinking there so far.
Plane of existence, and believed that the knowledge of the Great Ones would lead him there. On the other hand, one of Willem's associates, Lawrence, believed that mankind could ascend through use of the old blood, the blood of the Great Ones. Lawrence seems headstrong and rash, where Willem advised caution. When we inspect the skull after defeating Vicar Amelia, this is the conflict we see.
No, but you will never listen. I tell you, I will not forget our adage.
Lawrence tells Willem he will always fear the old blood, yet he goes on to found the Healing Church, a faith built upon the miraculous old blood. Meanwhile, Willem remains behind at Bergenworth and decides to pursue alternate methods to ascension. Lawrence and his...
Yes. I kind of thought that there would be... I've always felt like through the playthrough there were different things happening, different ways to sort of change. Like there's different beasts, and not beasts, but different enemies. Some being like, in the church... there's hunters, some like Yusefka and her clinic is turning people into like blue. I have well, now that I finished the game, I've been able to go look on the internet. I think people call them some various things, goobers. I think someone dropped in the comments. But yeah, like those blue alien things, and then also there are people turning into beasts. I don't think he's explained this yet. But yeah, various methods to change, transcend, or follow some sort of religious belief, whether good or bad.
This church were central to the alternate methods to ascension. Lawrence and his church were central to the power in Yharnam. Perhaps they even built the place. Blood ministers doled out the miraculous healing blood to the populace, and the city evolved to reflect that. People came from far and wide, just like you did, for the chance to be healed. The Yharnamites whose doors you knock on are quite arrogant and proud, and dislike outsiders. However, after the old blood was introduced into the populace, people began turning into beasts.
You stop right there. Not an inch closer.
In response, the church founded the Hunter's Workshop with Gurman.
I don't know if I followed that. Is it only the old blood? Because they said the blood was healing, so blood healing, that's a big part of this, and the healing church and everything. But then people started to turn into beasts. Was it the old blood the whole time, that then later, after they were healed, they turned into beasts? Sounds like that might be the case.
In response, the church founded the Hunter's Workshop with Gurman at its head. Gurman's methods defined beast hunting. He abandoned the notion of armor and dressed instead for speed and agility. With a firearm in one hand and adaptable melee weapon in the other, the forces of the workshop became the city's primary defense against the beastly threat. Perhaps the workshop was even a secret organization, for item descriptions note that they worked under the cover of night, and the location of the workshop was certainly difficult to find. In time, the workshop would be abandoned in favor of the black and white church hunters. Perhaps Gurman's workshop failed in keeping the scourge a secret. Perhaps the church required a more intimidating approach. Whatever the case, the hunters were fighting for something, and it wasn't just to keep the populace safe. Turns out the hunters' workshop was just one of 3 branches of the church.
Oh.
The others were the choir and Mikolash's school of Mensis.
Oh.
The choir existed to continue the work that began at Byrgenwerth, namely the pursuit of insight by way of communion with.
I think the choir was when I found that key and went back to the church, the cathedral ward, and went up to the top. That's where they were growing aliens. I'm going to call them aliens. But they were like growing aliens from plants. And then there was definitely a big connection between that actually happening in, you know, in Yharnam and the waking world versus in the DLC when they have sunflowers and they're kind of like crazy and they have big heads with eyes trying to see, you know, that felt like crazy religion trying to do the same thing because they were basically trying to grow stuff. I don't know if that means anything, but I just definitely saw a parallel between the two.
Work that began at Byrgenwerth, namely the pursuit of insight by way of communion with the Great Ones. The choir's work eventually led them to an audience with Abritas, a left-behind Great One.
Oh.
The School of Mensis was, as the name implies, devoted to research and learning. And while item descriptions state that Mensis was allied with the Healing Church, in our adventures it becomes clear that the school is responsible for most of the problems in this world. In Bloodborne, it's difficult to point to a main antagonist, but if I had to, I'd point to Mikolash, who is the head of the School of Mensis.
Really?
Somehow, Mikolash got his hands on the umbilical cord of a Great One. These cords are very important. For simplicity's sake, think of these umbilical cords as powerful relics.
I don't think I ever got the third one. I had 2 umbilical cords. I looked at them, I read them, and I never did anything with them.
Important. For simplicity's sake, think of these umbilical cords as powerful relics that enable contact with the Great Ones. There are 3 of these umbilical cords in-game, and they are used by 3 of the main characters.
I got 2 of them.
One cord was found by Mikolash, head of the School of Mensis. One cord is held by Willem back in Byrgenwerth, and another cord went to Gurman of the Hunter's Workshop. Mikolash used his cord to perform a great ritual. It ripped a lecture hall of Mensis into the Nightmare Realm so that they could be granted audience with a being named Murgo. It is believed that Murgo is the child of a Great One, birthed through Yharnam, the Tumerian queen. There is little known about his power, his origins, or his significance, so just know for now that Mensis wanted audience with Murgo, but that this audience came at a great cost. A note in the village reads, "The Mensis ritual must be stopped, lest we all become beasts."
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Willem used his cord to, and I quote, "elevate his being and thoughts to those of a Great One by lining his brain with eyes." In the lake below him, we come across Rom, the vacuous spider. Many descriptions in-game tell us that this spider hides all manner of rituals. In particular, though, it seems that the spider is holding back the effects of the Mensis ritual. When Rom is gone, a blood moon descends, blurring the line between beast and man. After this
Interesting. Really interesting. So Willem is up there protecting everybody. God, we're really just like a wild, sort of like a cowboy. You know, we're just rolling in. We don't know what the hell's going on. We're just killing everybody. And we're actually unleashing literal nightmares onto the waking world. Let's see. We do that before we go to Mensis, the Nightmare of Mensis. I'm going to assume the order that I do that will make no difference in the game, but it is really interesting to see that, you know, Willem the cautious one, right? I think that's what he said earlier. Yeah, Willem is over there being cautious. Has Rom the vacuous spider is pretty much saving everybody, and I just roll in and kill the spider, unleash hell, and I'm just like, oh, oops, let me just go on to Bensis and kill everybody there too. You just got to kill everything. That's what we do in Bloodborne, kill everything.
Descends, blurring the line between beast and man. After this event, we find the path to Yahar'gul open, so our character can go through and silence the harrowing cries of Murgo, the infant Great One. The third umbilical cord found its...
That's one thing I wanted to touch on as well. I read about this. I've been trying to research a little bit here. You know, when I beat Murgo's wet nurse, it took forever for it to actually end. And there's like a baby crying, but then the baby's cry ends, and you're not actually fighting Murgo's wet nurse. You're fighting Murgo, I think.
The infant Great One. The third umbilical cord found its way into German's hands. After his hunter's workshop disbanded, German was alone and unimportant. His only companion was this doll, which he appears to have crafted with love and care. Perhaps this doll's creator had wished for such a friend, albeit in vain. His cord reads,
He's a weirdo.
The great ones that inhabit the nightmare are sympathetic in spirit and often answer when called upon. This third cord summoned the moon presence, a great one which beckoned the hunters and conceived the hunter's dream. German got what he wanted, a companion and a purpose, but he becomes a puppet, endlessly finding and guiding hunters through the dream and out into the world, assumedly under the influences and desires of the moon presence. So, to recap, Mikolash, whose character is ever ambitious to ascend and become a great one, used his cord to establish contact. He sacrificed his school of Mensis and brought the consequences of that contact upon the world. Willem, ever cautious, used his cord and Rom to mask the effects of that ritual. And German, lonely and lacking purpose, became a puppet to another great one named the Moon Presence. He guides hunters through this dream and out into a few select locations. The hunter's dream ends when you successfully hunt down Murgo and his nightmare of Mensis, suggesting that Mensis was the root of the scourge of beasts, and perhaps that the Moon Presence wanted the child of another great one dead. When you silence Murgo, you return to the workshop on fire. The dream's purpose is fulfilled.
Oh, yes.
You approach German, host of this hunter's dream, and he...
I wonder who lit the workshop. I guess Gehrman lit it on fire because there's no more purpose now. So he just sees it as the end. I guess that's what he's explaining.
Is fulfilled. You approach German, host of this hunter's dream, and he tells you that he has the power to free you. If you choose this option, you are unbound from the dream.
I did not do that.
You lived through the hunt and saw the sunrise over Yharnam. If you reject German, the Moon Presence decides it needs another host for its dream. You become captivated by the Moon Presence and pledge to watch over the hunter's dream. But there is a third option, ascension.
Oh.
When the conditions are right for a great one to be born, the mother and child can be harvested for an umbilical cord. But
I never saw any of this. A mother and child, and there's a baby there laying on the ground. So I don't know what this is about in detail. I think what they're discussing is there's somebody I could have sent to the cathedral ward, but as we all know, I killed that NPC. I can't remember the name. But yeah, you know, I know that there's a lot I missed because I just sent everybody to Yusefka's clinic as it was my only option. So I'm thinking that this was someone maybe back there.
be born, the mother and child can be harvested for an umbilical cord. But all great ones lose their children and yearn for a surrogate child instead, a replacement. Mikolash, Willem, German, they all found umbilical cords somewhere in the past and used them for their own needs. But ultimately, each of them was unsuccessful in the contact that they had with the Great Ones. However, the notes of the Bergenworth scholars contain this information. 3 third cords.
Yeah, I remember
Hunt
that.
the Great Ones. Hunt the Great Ones. If you consume 3 cords, you can resist becoming the Moon Presence's captive. Instead, you hunt the Moon Presence, and afterward, you become an infant Great One, living inside the dream the Moon Presence conceived. You manage to ascend, as no one else before you did, and you will lift humanity into its next childhood.
What? What a crazy ending. Yeah, this guy has a longer 30-minute video that goes into a lot of detail. You should check that out. He put a lot of work into this. It's really good. Holy cow, man. That's really interesting. Okay, so let's recap. The hunter's dream is some bullshit that Gehrman, who just happened to have an umbilical cord, dreamed up with his moon Great One, and just it gives him a purpose. So our entire like mission in the game is just for Gehrman to have something to do. That's probably oversimplifying a little bit, but that feels about right. Mikolash sucks. He's trying to make contact. He unleashes hell upon everybody, and he's the bad guy. And he was kind of annoying too, wasn't he? He was all creepy. He was a creep. You know, if you ever saw a dude talking to you like, you know, that's not the guy. So that makes sense that he's the bad dude. Okay. Well, I'm glad I watched that. I think I got a good understanding of Bloodborne, a much better understanding of it. Wow, that's really wild. I do wish I had a little more understanding of the research hall. Is it research building? No, research hall, I think it's called. And the with all the sunflowers and the brain people and stuff like that. I was really kind of hoping for something there because I just saw a lot of, like, I guess I mentioned earlier, a lot of parallels between that and what was happening in Yharnam, and right before Abritus, when I fought her. I almost said her. I guess it sounds like a female or kind of name. I don't know. But when I fought it, yeah, it just seemed to say, I don't know. I guess I didn't get anything out of that. So anyway, I'm rambling at this point. This was a good video. Anyway, go check it out. Click on it. Watch it again. And thanks for joining me while I try to figure out what the heck I just saw. So appreciate it. Bye.